3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Here the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Wednesday evening. And yes, we're still in this dry period of the offseason. Florida State, though, gearing up, getting closer and closer to spring camp. But there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. So we went into our Discord and grabbed a handful of questions from you guys. We got a couple of quick as well, and we'll end off with some basketball in this episode. But in this week's show, we're going to talk about 5 newcomers that FSU football should see playing this upcoming season for the Florida State Seminoles. And we're also going to talk about a new coaching hire that we are the most excited about. And each one of us are going to give our picks on that. We're also going to talk about practices and a good discussion on what we expect it to be. We'll get a good first glance of it during the spring, but I think a lot of discussion so far throughout this offseason is about the physicality that might be changing a little bit in the way Mike Norvell runs things. So we'll jump into a question there that we got there from our Discord, and then we're going to pick out which offensive versus defensive battle we're looking forward to the most going into this upcoming spring camp. Gentlemen, with me this evening is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer, and all the way to the other side is Dustin Lewis, D-Lew, our editor-in-chief at NG. Gentlemen, how we doing?
It's great to be back for another week, even though, it's looking a little dry tonight.
It's cold here. I'm not going to hold y'all. It has snowed here again. We went 2 years without snow, and now we've had it, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 2 months. So it's a little crazy up here in the Charlotte area.
Ooh, yeah, no, thank you. I'm going to chill here with the 70 degrees in St. Petersburg. Don't want to get into that cold again, but we'll be getting into it next week up there in Indianapolis. Was just looking at the projections for what that's going to be, and that's going to be something that I don't think I've ever experienced in my lifetime of being around like 5 degrees. God knows it's going to get even colder than that, but there's going to be some snow as well. But luckily, up there in Lucas Oil Stadium, it's inside, so don't have to worry about it too much whenever all this stuff is going on throughout the day. But it's going to be cold walking over to that stadium and going over to restaurants and finding some beers. It's going to be a little chilly, and I don't think I have the wardrobe for it as well. I'm going to have to go buy some actual jackets that can keep me warm.
It's brutal, and it's not like Boston. It's Indy. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to look at. So try and hang around at that combine as long as you can.
Yeah, I think we'll be spending about a majority of the day there, early morning all the way until they have to kick us out, honestly, because like you said, there's nothing else to do. But if there's some bars nearby, I'll be there. Got to have some beers up there. But looking forward to being up there and covering some of the Noles that will be competing. But as always, before we get started, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know it is dry. It's about the end of February, and there's not a whole ton of stuff going on, but we are nearing spring camp, and we're going to have full coverage all around it. And two, D-Lew, I know it's not confirmed yet on if media are going to be able to go see some tour of duty, but if we do get an opportunity to go out there, we'll have a full discussion and also some recaps of what that looks like, because that's one of the first times you get to see some of the newcomers come in, see what they look like, kind of just see the size, some of the freshmen coming in, because you already know what you kind of got with the transfers, but some guys like Micah Pettis I'd love to see, just see how those guys are moving all around, because we've been hearing it in these newcomer interviews that it's been definitely a new thing to get used to. Definitely when these guys come in for the first time and they experience it, it is a different world that Coach Storms puts together to get these guys conditioned and also put in and add some strength to their bodies. But we'll hopefully maybe we'll get access to that, but I think we're going to see a little bit of a different way that Mike Norvell and the rest of this coaching staff kind of switches up, and availability on some things might be a little bit more limited going into this season, as we saw a trend of that happening in the latter half of the 2024 season.
We'll see how it goes. I'm certainly interested, but yeah, like you said, I mean, with the newcomers coming in and going through tour of duty, obviously that's a little bit of a shock compared to maybe some things that they've done in the past. And yeah, it's always nice to get out there and kind of see not only, how returning guys are continuing to grow, but you can also get a little bit of a feel of, the team chemistry and the camaraderie and who's growing into a leader whenever the workouts, starts getting towards the end and guys are very tired and everything. So yeah, we'll see if we get access to that. But I mean, if not, about 4 more weeks to go until we get to spring practice and finally have football really back in our lives.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us tried to, I mean, not that they wanted to, but kind of had to cut that off of their mindset, which sucked whenever, you want to pull for Florida State football and everything. But whenever you saw the product on the field and what it showed, and you just lost a lot of interest. And I think, I mean, this is a very, very long off season for FSU fans just because of that. Because, I mean, you could go all the way to middle of September. You kind of understood what team you were going to get on a week-to-week basis. And this offseason to me began a lot earlier than it usually does because of that. And I'm excited to hopefully we'll get some we'll actually get some intel on what some of these guys are looking like. And like you said, Dustin, leaders. The FSU needs that big time. And just hearing from Thomas Castellanos, Deuce Robinson to the USC wide receiver transfer, there's a lot of leadership coming into this locker room that was lacking in a massive way this last season. Let's start off with a quick hitter here before we go into some of these Q&A segments. Some disappointing news here coming on Monday with Charles Lester, redshirt freshman cornerback who was arrested for a DUI in Manatee County in his hometown there. He was bonded out at $500 and since has been released. An FSU spokesperson stated, we are aware of the situation and are gathering all information. We will be addressing it internally. And, it's Charles Lester, someone that I think a lot of us have really high hopes on, someone that we were there for his commitment ceremony, which was fantastic down there in Sarasota. A lot of his friends and family were there. And it was a great celebration and someone that we expected to be competing here for, a potential starting role and definitely getting into that rotation this upcoming season. But certainly some disappointing news there. And Florida State's going to be handling this internally. We know too, Shaheem Brown went through something similar, maybe a little bit more, I would say both things are in a bad realm, but I would say just off of an explanation that you were able to gather, Dustin, Charles Lester's is a little bit lesser of I would say situation. I know it's still ongoing, so it's kind of hard to tie everything up and say this is done, but just interested to see what you got to, Dustin, from what info you gathered earlier.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the, quote unquote severity, maybe it's still just very disappointing for Florida State and, not something that you want to have in the news and an off season. We're already coming off a pretty bad season. And, you kind of mentioned it as well, Logan, you had the incident with Shaheem Brown that occurred last summer. And then he was obviously ultimately suspended for FSU's game against Memphis in September. And, typically since Mike Norvell arrived in Tallahassee, Florida State, they haven't really had a ton of trouble off the field. And I mean, you just want to make sure that this doesn't turn into a greater issue because, as we've seen across college football, alcohol has created some issues for programs. But yeah, you mentioned it. We reached out to FSU and we were able to get that comment from the spokesperson. And then I put in an inquiry with the Manatee County Sheriff to try and get more information about the case, just because there wasn't a lot there on, what they posted online on the booking report. And, essentially Lester was pulled over for going 61 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. He admitted to the police officer that he had one one cup of wine. And then they took him back to the station and his breath sample ended up being over the limit for people who are under 21 years of age. So that was basically why he got hit with the DUI charge. If he was 21, then he actually would have been under the legal limit. But since he's only 18 years old, that's why he got that. And looks like he's going to appear in court on March 27th at 9 a.m. So, I mean, this will be something to kind of continue to monitor here. And we'll see how Florida State handles it. But obviously, they're going to do that in-house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, going back to Shaheem Brown, we saw him get suspended from some games. Didn't really understand what was going on there, and someone that we expected to see play a big impact the last season, but things just didn't go according to plan. But that was the case for a lot of players. But then we were learning, some other things that happened outside of the campus, and just got to hope things get straight. It's a lesson to learn, and like the statement came from FSU. Things are going to be handled internally, and see what Norvell and the rest of the staff end up doing there with Charles. But someone that I think all of us feel very highly on, just naturally gifted, and hope that can just be something he can learn from and move forward with. Let's jump into some topics here, and that's the theme of this show tonight. And it's been a big topic for, I think, everybody, because this is a new roster coming into Florida State, and just trying to figure out which newcomers are going to be the bright spots coming into this next season. So we got 5 newcomers for Florida State that will play right away in 2025. And I think for FSU fans, you immediately think of guys like, transfer-wise, Thomas Castellanos, or, there's also, Deuce Robinson. There's some guys that are definitely going to go in there and play, but maybe there's some sleeper ones that we might not be thinking of that should get a role in this upcoming season. And I mentioned it last week. You have 2 different coordinators, 2 new coordinators coming in, and what personnel that former staff thought fit best might look a little bit different in what personnel they think should fit best on either the offensive or defensive side of the ball. So interested to get y'all's takes on who you think is going to be a newcomer that is going to jump in and should play right away for Florida State this upcoming season.
And I do want to say Logan was not very clear with this at all. So I listed 5 true freshmen. I have no idea what he's going to bring out. So
I didn't do just freshmen, but it's all incoming recruits and no transfers, and that'll be my little spoiler.
We're getting wild out here. Let me go with one here. I'll go ahead and start us off, and I'm going to go to Ousmane Kroma, because I actually just read an interview that Mike Norvell did talking about Ousmane and how that offer came to be about. This, as we know, on early signing day, it was a big surprise that Florida State was able to flip the blue chip running back from Georgia and Kirby Smart to come to the Seminoles. But one thing that Mike Norvell, mentioned in this latest interview, I think it was with War Chant, Norvell's been working on Ousmane for a very, very long time, going all the way back to his freshman season, whenever he was in attendance for one of the games there. He got to see him, I believe, rush for over 200-something yards. And after that game, he said, yeah, on Monday, we'll go ahead and be giving him an offer. And since then, they've tried to build a good relationship, stay in contact, and try to compete with these other schools across the country for the last 4 years. FSU wins at the very end. And to me, Ousmane, just the way that he plays, his physicality and just natural ability to make plays when kind of things just look like they're collapsing, just fits the mold for what Florida State needs, and honestly what Gus Malzahn wants. And I think that's someone that we're going to see play right away in this upcoming season for Florida State, because I think there are some question marks a little bit for that running back room, just because it's Gus Malzahn, and I think he's going to have he gets to figure out which fits his scheme the best. Because there is a lot of talented guys back there, but it's kind of a reset there for David Johnson and that group of running backs that he has in that stable. I think it's going to be really hard to get Kroma off the field, and just for some reasons too of what they told him and flipping him from Georgia, I'm pretty sure there was definitely some promises made as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in here because I also have Kroma included on my list of 5 players. And I mean, like you said, Logan, Norvell got a chance to see him in person and was blown away. And Norvell made it a point to note as well that, he watched Kroma live more than any other prospect, that he's committed. And he believes that flipping him from Georgia is as big as any signing that they've landed so far during his tenure in Tallahassee. So obviously very high hopes here for this guy coming in, and, for good reason. He's had 3 consecutive seasons of 1,000+ yards. The 2024 Mr. Georgia football had a senior season where he had nearly 1,400 yards on the ground, 15 touchdowns, and then added nearly 750 yards through the air and 8 more scores. So, I mean, this guy is dynamic. He's able to impact the game, not only as a rusher, but as a receiver as well, which I think is going to be a big asset for him in this offense at Florida State. Really good balance, great vision, which was something the backfield seemed to lack at times last season. Obviously, tough when the offensive line's breaking down like that. But Chroma's a guy who can break tackles. Plays with power, stiff arms, is able to hurdle defenders, get into open field. Very impressive lower body with a lot of strength and keeping his legs driving, things like that. So, I mean, this is a guy who's going to be a tough runner. He can create those home run plays, but, he can also turn a 3-yard gain into an 8-yard gain as well by breaking a tackle. So he should be very fun to watch. Not going to be here until the summer, but good enough, like you said, Logan, to instantly make an impact in this running back room, which is returning some experience.
Yeah, I think the reason all three of us included mainly is just because no one in that room stood out last year. I mean, as much as we can like guys like Sam Singleton and Cam Davis, Jalen Lucas, and whoever else you want to name in that room, no one really stood out. And a lot of that was due to the offensive line. But someone has to stand out at some point. Why not? Why can't it be Chroma? You've already mentioned all the accolades and how productive he's been in high school, how much Norvell wanted him throughout his high school career. And, he's going to have an impact, or he's going to have a chance to make an impact immediately.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to go first for the second one? Anyone feel up for it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and break out one here. I've got Javon Boggs, true freshman wide receiver who Florida State flipped from UCF on my list as well. And, this isn't a guy who, maybe flashes off the page with his speed, with his athleticism, but he's just a very fundamentally sound technical football player, high football IQ, someone who can catch passes with consistency, run really good routes, and, figure out how to make a big impact in the game. And, you look what he did during his senior season, 99 catches for 2,133 yards and 24 touchdowns. And he also set the single game state record in Florida, which happened to come in a playoff win on his quest to a third consecutive state championship to end off his prep career. So, I mean, he's proven to be a winner. He's been extremely productive. And, I mean, was only I think less than 50 yards away from setting the single season state record in Florida for receiving. So this guy's kind of proven it already at the high school level. And I think he's someone that comes in with a pretty high floor already as a true freshman. And that makes me think that he can jump into a role immediately on this offense, which obviously needs some pass catchers after the inconsistencies we saw in 2024.
Mm-hmm. I like that pick. I was just saying, I'm right there with you, Dustin. The consistency is something that this offense needs in the wide receiver room. It needs it, and if it has to be someone that's young in here that does it, then so be it. But I think that we're going to see Boggs be able to show us early what he can do because of his success at the high school level, and he played against some good competition in this state as well, and it's really impressive. But the consistency, it reminds me of someone of like a Rashad Green. That's something that a lot of people kind of sleep on him. There's some other names and bigger playmakers, I guess you could say, but Rashad Green, just consistency on a week-to-week basis, and that's something Florida State's offense is going to need going into this next season after the lack they had last year.
I'm going to stay in the same room and go with one of my JUCO guys, Jordan Scott. 6'7", 215 doesn't grow on trees. And as much as we expect this offense to be run heavy, you need blockers on the outside. And with the frame like that, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he works his way onto the field, even just for blocking plays, just here and there. And we've seen Florida State have success with these taller, girthier wide receivers than last year when they try to go speed, shiftier guys. So I think Jordan Scott, at the very least, could get in the game at the end of games to start. But again, that size is hard to come by, and Florida State made it a point to go out and get those guys this summer or this offseason. Sorry,
he's very intriguing, and taking a look at some of his film, I personally think at this stage of where he's at in his football career, he's more of a natural pass catcher than where Johnny Wilson was whenever he came to Florida State. So there's certainly a lot to mold there, like you said. I mean, the size is not something that you find every single day in Florida State. They figured out a way to produce with these larger wide receivers, and it seems like that they've got a plan carved out for Jordan Scott.
I think things can click well with Castellanos there at the quarterback position, keeping plays alive. you would rather go to guys that have long range and catch radiuses. And, that's someone that has that with Scott and what you have in Deuce Robinson coming in. There's a lot to like in the size department in the wide receiver room. I'm going to go on the defensive side here, and one that I'm just super stoked and I can't wait to see. I wish we could get some early access to see him before we even reach into the spring, but it's going to be Kevin Wynn for me on the defensive line. To me, and it's going to kind of match one of the question marks that we have in this show tonight, talking about coaches that we're excited to see, the newcomer coaches. Kevin Wynn is going to be someone that is going to play in 2025. He's a true freshman coming in 6'2", 340. I would imagine him and Coach Storms are, doing some work together and trying to trim up a little bit, but still nonetheless a wrecker inside at the defensive line unit, something that Tony White is going to want big time. I was just going back and looking at some of Tony White's breakdowns of his defense today, and he really pinpointed that nose tackle, someone that is on the inside that can cause havoc. And that's something that Kevin Wynn, just looking at tape from him in high school, he does that. Was one of the top rated defensive tackles in his class, ranked as a number 9th at his position. I just like the way that he plays. I think Florida State keeping a hold of him and getting him to sign was big. I know there was a lot of schools after him at the very end, but he stuck with his commitment and his loyalty, and also too was able to go and move with the change of the coaching staff. Odell Hagen's now taking an off the field role, and now Terrence Knighton jumping in from Nebraska, joining Tony White. I'm just really, really stoked to see Wynn, but I think he's someone that is going to be playing in 2025 just because of some of the question marks that I have behind Daryl Jackson and some of the other guys that are in that room with Daniel Lyons, who I still feel highly on, and KJ Sampson, but Kevin Wynn, that natural ability and talent, I think is going to jump him up in the depth chart pretty early in his career.
I didn't hear a word you just said. All I can see is the monitor coming through your glasses, like reflecting through. I'm just looking at your webpage, like through your eyes right now.
Did Austin hear me?
I heard you, but I wasn't listening.
Well, what's new there? That's me whenever you're talking about basketball. So I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I'm over here already writing the title for the podcast. I'm already editing it.
All I heard was
I just gave the most beautiful rundown of Kevin Wynn and why he's going to be the top 5 defensive tackle, true freshman defensive tackle in the country.
I'll have to go back and listen to that, I guess.
Oh, it's beautiful. 2 minutes straight. You'll be sex to your ears.
I've got Kevin Wynn in my list as well.
Oh, look at that.
Very dominant player during his prep career, competed at the Navy All-American Bowl in January, and was so dominant during periods of practice that they actually had to sit him out to keep those going at the time. But, like Logan said, 6'2", between that 320 to 340 range. He's kind of like a little bit of a bowling ball, very physical and athletic at the point of attack. And, I've seen some people say that he has the potential to be an NFL draft pick at some point. So obviously thinking very highly of him as he begins his college career. And he's coming off a season where he had 59 tackles, 27 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, an interception, a forced fumble, and 3 blocked field goals. So, he gets it done all over the field. And Florida State, obviously, Logan, I think you probably talked about it. Like I said, I really don't remember what you said. But Joshua Farmer and a bunch of those guys in the interior moving on, and there's a spot open for Kevin Wynn to come in, compete immediately for playing time. And I don't think it'd be a surprise if he's on that field in 2025.
Look at that. You knew what I would say. I did point to, the depth, and that he could jump up in the depth chart after. I didn't say the loss of Farmer, but I did mention that after Daryl Jackson, KJ Sampson, Daniel Lyons, I'm like, who's there? Who's there? And Kevin Wynn is there.
Yeah, Kevin Wynn was an easy selection for this list. He's Florida State's highest rated prospect. And I think part of what's working in his benefit as well is just an entirely new coaching staff that doesn't have any certain loyalty to any of these guys outside of like James Williams, who was at Nebraska with Tony White and Pot Roast. So these guys are going to come in, get fresh eyes on all these players, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Kevin Wynn's one of the most outstanding players there. Obviously, Darrell Jackson has been getting a lot of praise from the coaching staff this offseason, but Wynn has a chance to really get in that rotation right away.
Wynn could help Florida State win.
You would hope.
There we go. There we go. Welcome to Hear the Spear. We are hilarious and we keep you entertained on February 19th when nothing is going on. Let's continue this list, though, because we got to keep rolling. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. And you know what? I was going to come up with a question or topic regarding defensive ends for FSU this upcoming year, because last year was a complete letdown with Marvin Jones Jr. and Pat Payton, who's now off to LSU, Marvin Jones over to Oklahoma. But I'm going over to Jesse Harold, and I think he's someone that can crack in and get into that rotation as a true freshman coming into this season. Just looking at some of his stats from his last season and throughout his career on the high school level, a highly productive defensive end, a guy that can get to the backfield. I like his frame too. I think some work with Coach Storms and building some more strength will do him well, as any true freshman coming in from the high school level will. But someone that I think, just looking at the room, nothing impresses me a whole ton out of some of the transfers that have come in, and then some of the guys that have been on this roster for a long time. Nothing really stands out because there hasn't been a lot of standouts from what you had as your premier guys the last couple of seasons with Pat Payne, what you had previously with Jared Verse. Things did not work out last year, and I just don't see anybody else in that defensive end room that are returning from last year that have already left. There's definitely room for someone to get in there and crack that rotation. I think Jesse Harold has that natural ability to be able to do so.
Yeah, that defensive end room got absolutely decimated through the transfer portal. You mentioned Marvin Jones Jr. and Patrick Payton, but obviously, Byron Turner Jr., D.D. Holmes was kind of like an underrated loss for Florida State, losing one of your younger prospects in that room. So, yeah, they've had to replenish that through the transfer portal and high school ranks. And, I like the pick for Jesse Harold. It's good that Florida State's already got him on campus. That was a good flip for them leading up to the early signing period. I'm eyeing another true freshman defensive end. I'm going with Tylen Lee, who FSU was able to flip during the early signing period from Ole Miss. And, the reason why I'm going with him over Harold is just because of the size. Already 6'4", 245 pounds coming in. It seems like he's got a frame that's ready for the college level. This dude, physical, massive. And what I love the most about him is his motor. Always running on film, pursuing plays from the backside, just doing everything he can to make an impact. Listen to these stats for a senior season. I'm pretty sure we've already mentioned on here before, but 87 tackles, 40 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, a fumble recovery, and 3 pass deflections. We're talking about a guy who was constantly in the backfield and just has boatloads of potential. And I think this is going to be a really fun guy for Terrence Knighton to get a chance to mold over the coming years.
Great pick, Dustin. That's exactly who I was going with, and for the exact same reasons, because of that size at over 240 pounds. I just think it's a little more realistic that frame could get on the field right away in a 3-3-5 defense, if that's what Tony White ends up doing like we expect him to. Jesse Harold's very talented, but I think his size is going to hold him back at first. He's only listed at 210, 215 pounds. It's going to take him a little bit to add some weight on. Tylen Lee doesn't need to add any size. He's already got it. He's very physical, and as Dustin just mentioned, and really both you guys just mentioned, that edge room has been decimated this offseason. Why can't Tylen Lee make an impact?
Yep, only 2 returning.
They need one of these true freshmen to do it.
I don't know if Logan's computer is lagging or what, but only 2 returning scholarship defensive ends back on Florida State's roster. That's Jaden Jones, who missed the entire 2024 season due to an injury that he suffered during spring practice, and also Aaron Hester, who was in that rotation last fall.
I didn't hear whatever Austin said there, and his
like
pick.
3 seconds, 3 or 4 seconds behind us.
Computer was lagging out. My computer was lagging there, and I just didn't hear what Austin said. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea.
It's on your end.
Everything looks fine. Internet. Yeah, computer. I want to just go to a few comments here. Let's make sure that we go over these as where When does Dustin's dating segment come on? Ask
You gotta
Stan.
ask Austin about that. I don't
Any
know.
co-
Nope.
Yeah, I guess you're married, Dustin. You're married. Austin just recently had a very special Valentine's. How'd it go, and what'd you do?
It was good.
He
We
just
don't-
skipped the fifth player in our last
Yeah,
segment.
I
Sorry,
know. It was good. We don't really need to talk about it, but
Wait, and then there's where's the question from Terrell? There it is. Not really a question, just saying, hey, what up, my boys? Logan the Great, Austin the Baller, and hey, Dustin.
Hello.
That's messed up, man. It's messed up. Yeah, give us a response, man. Give us a response. Oh man. Where are we at? I don't know. I'm at 4, I think.
we are at 4.
I'm at 4.
I thought we're at
Now,
5
now
now.
this is where the real fun.
We're at our last one. Yeah, I'm saying
We're at
we've
5.
done
I mean,
4.
yeah, I had my 4. Yeah, I had my 4, so I'm on to my 5th, I believe. I'm kind of stuck here, so I'm stuck between Lofton at tight end, because I know the staff really liked him and they really wanted him to stick in the class and everything, and keep that commitment, and so be it. He did. I think I'm gonna stick there. I'm going Antonio Cromartie, baby, because it's just good to have that name in the building again. Is that a problem? Antonio Cromartie, baby, Junior. Watch out. No, I'm just kidding. I go Chase Lofton. I mean, someone that might be able to see and crack into the rotation potentially. It's tough when you're going on your 5th guy here on who you're picking, but it's a room that has some talent there, and it depends too on what they're going to do with Damari Williams. But you brought in transfers with Marquise and Douglas, Randy Pittman coming from UCF. So it's not going to be the easiest, but if it's someone that maybe could get some playing time, maybe it's Chase Lofton. I was going to try to think of someone else more on the offensive line or defensive line, but you can't really find anybody because you brought in so many transfers on the offensive side of the ball. But I went with the wild pick there, and I have Lofton in there for right now.
I don't hate it. I mean, we've seen how much Florida State like to utilize multiple tight ends over the last couple of years. With Mike Norvell running the offense, I guess we'll kind of see how the dynamic shifts a little bit with Gus Malzahn. But it seems like for the most part, he likes to have a tight end, utilize an H-back as well. So it could be very similar, where you're having multiple guys out there contributing in different areas of the offense. I'm going with a little bit of a wild card here because, Chase Lofton, it's a worthy pick, but I wanted to swing for the fences a little bit. I'm personally going to be going with Bruno Reyes, a specialist that Florida State signed during the early signing period, flipped him from USF. And the reason here is obviously there's a big hole in those rooms with Ryan Fitzgerald and Alex Mastromano finally exhausting their eligibility. And, both those guys were All-Americans a season ago, and it's not going to be easy for the next guy stepping into their shoes. Now, you do have Jake Weinberg at kicker. He's probably going to be the starter there. Redshirted, was able to learn behind Ryan this past season. But then at punter, it's a little bit more wide open. Mac Chiumento's been with the program for a couple of seasons, but hasn't really seen game action. Been impressed with his leg for the most part in practice. But, Florida State bringing in Reyes, who was one of the top kickers and punters in the country in this past cycle, earned a 5-star rating from Cole's Kicking, where he was the number 2 punter and the number 3 kicker among rising seniors. So we'll just have to see. He doesn't get to campus until the summer, but that's certainly going to be a battle worth watching because, you only start paying attention to the special teams whenever they start performing terribly.
I'm going back to the JUCO route for Tylen Coleman. For a lot of the same reasons we talked about with Kevin Wynn, where there's not a lot of proven options there. And you need some guys that can make an impact. Guy that's coming out of JUCO has a better chance. He's already been in college for a couple years, granted, not at the same level as a lot of these other guys, but he's a talented physical player. I think you could get in that rotation a little bit. Why not?
Yep. I think we should do a bet on whoever gets the most snaps between Harold, the defensive end position, and Lee, and make a bet. We'll have to figure that out, but we'll make a bet before the season begins on who gets the most snaps. I feel like that'd be a fun thing to do.
If Lee gets more snaps, you got to shave your head.
God, jeez. Well, would you do the same? I mean, you don't really have to shave off much.
Yeah, I'm rocking a 3 right now.
It's a 3 all around too. I'd like to see D-Lou have a fade, get him fade up on the back a little bit. I think you could actually rock it well.
I did one time, and then I was like, I don't know.
What, Gina didn't like it? Wifey didn't like it?
I was feeling so much air, like whenever the breeze came through.
You
Just
feel more
hitting parts of my head I didn't even know that I had. But no, it's crazy though.
Clean shaven. How about we clean shave it all? Clean. Come on.
I don't think we need it. Nah, we don't need to see that.
No, it's gonna grow back in a week. It's a bet. It's not supposed to be like a fun. I get a fun thing out of this. If you lose, you lose, and you have to just shave your beard.
Shave your beard.
It grows back in like
and your beard and your head.
No. Just your beard.
Wow, that's lame. All right, you got to get a tattoo on your neck.
Oh my God, dang. Jeez, okay. Let's just stick with maybe getting a haircut or something, or getting a fade or something. We'll figure it out. We'll have the chat. We'll put up a YouTube poll before the season begins, and we'll keep a hold of this, because I think it actually is could be a good battle there on who gets the most playing time this upcoming season. There's a question here from Stan. This is a great question. I've been observing this as well, and so has I think a lot of FSU Twitter. What are the odds that the stadium is actually going to finish on time for the Bama season kickoff? Look like a lot to finish in the next 6 months. I'm right there with you. I think there is quite a bit left for them to finish off. I don't have any kind of insight or intel or scoop. Maybe we can get more of that maybe for next week's show. But I'm right there with you a little bit, just looking at the developments
camera,
there. I mean, pull up the camera. I mean, they've got some work to do.
Yeah, I mean, Stan, I'll just ask the project manager next time I see him.
Yeah, just ping him. He's on your he's in your top contacts. But no, I mean, you think about it, externally, it's still got a lot of work to do. But then on the inside, on the concourse, and then also setting up what it's going to be kind of like. If you've been to Jacksonville Stadium, the club level there, you got a lot of work to do on the inside and making that look nice. And I know they're doing a lot of renovations on that concourse as a whole inside Doak Campbell Stadium. So, yeah, they're risking it for a biscuit here, and maybe we can get some insight. But it looks a little not nervous yet, but I'm also not an expert in project management and building stuff either.
Sorry, I was trying to see if you pulled the webcam up in your glasses, see if I can catch that reflection. But I don't know.
Searching, man. I'm searching.
I have no idea. They set the deadline for kickoff, so whether they're finishing up right there as the players are warming up or not, they're trying to get that thing done.
Yeah, this is becoming a lot of work here for me to try to go in and try to find the webcam. If someone's got a link, please throw it in. We need to see what's going on inside Doak Campbell Stadium right now.
They do kind of hide that thing.
I mean, I can't.
There must be a reason.
I mean, I can't find where I used to go.
You got to go
found
to
it.
the Booster website, then Capital Projects.
I got it. Oh, here we go. Let's pull it up on the screen. See what we got. What's Doak Campbell Stadium looking like? Looks pretty dark, but
someone was rubbing the camera with their fingers.
Yeah, got rainy up there in Tallahassee today for you guys.
A little bit,
yeah, but yeah, I mean, there seems like this part is done. It's still got some work to be done here, and then definitely over on this side. We got a crane. We've got a freight truck. I don't know what else to really dive into, guys. It seems like there's a lot of more work to be done.
I think they're fighting building codes that were way outdated, and they had to update a whole bunch of things that they weren't expecting, if I saw right.
Okay.
Let's scroll back a few hours. I want to see if they're working today.
They need to be working every day at this point.
It was raining, though. It was raining.
You think
they could be undercover.
Are you calling out the builders, Dustin? How do I go to hours on here? You don't think they're out here grinding?
There's a way to do it.
I know, but this thing here we go. We can get a really good zoom in here. Oh wow, you can really see the inside
there's
here.
people down there.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're on site for you, D-Lou.
All right.
This is what I'm wondering. You know, seeing around. I mean, this has been needed for a very, very long time. But getting all the concourse in here updating and stuff, I felt like you know, when you're walking through the stands and you feel like a drip come down on your neck or your shoulder. God forbid it happen on your face too. You just feel like someone just pissed on you. Like they gotta fix some things in there. It kind of scares me sometimes, but that's what they're supposedly renovating and getting it better. Look at that. There's some club level happening here. You can definitely see. Seems like there's gonna be where you can grab a beer, you can stand right here. That's a big old entrance.
I think
right
you're projecting a little bit.
It's
just concrete.
What happened?
Here's the drink stand.
Yeah, I said I think you're projecting a little bit when it's just concrete right now.
Nah, I can find a way to drink a beer right here. I can drink a beer right here. Shoot, I can drink a beer down here. That's my analysis for you there, Stan. Hopefully we did a good job there, but maybe we'll get some insight. See if we can talk to the sources.
They did put up that wall on that left-hand side there. Bottom left.
The brick wall?
No, I think it's about that. No, what?
That concrete, the like concrete wall there towards the
the concrete like slanted wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom into your left, Logan.
Right here.
Like,
I would not want to be
just above where you're
to the left.
Ooh, yeah, that wouldn't be fun. I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be pretty rough. Huh. Well, we'll see what we can do to get some updates for you guys on. Hopefully, we hope there's a game to be played. Florida State kicks off the season against Alabama. All right, let's jump into some questions here that we had from our Discord. This one is from Pandas Tab asking, which new coach hire are you the most excited to see in action? To me, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but I'm going with Terrence Knighton. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I could go with. I mean, certainly you could think about going to the offensive line. You could go all the way over to what, the coordinator is going to be bringing. But to me, I think Terrence Knighton is my pick just because of the whim of a Wynn coming into the fold for Florida State, and then two, just figuring out what he can do with Darrell Jackson, which I think is a special prospect and has some really good talents. It just needs some more coaching and developing, and that's where I think Terrence Knighton can come in and play an impact there. But I just also want to see how he coaches, because you go from Odell Hagan to someone that has been around this program for so long. I'm interested to see how that switch works. Also, too, with Odell Hagan and what kind of role he'll be playing or coaching or kind of just guiding along. I'm just interested to see how that works there with Terrence Knighton in the fold. But someone that I've been really looking forward to is seeing a younger coach come in there and someone with some past experience too at the professional level, at the NFL. Knighton, and also too hearing some things about him and his days at Nebraska, and hearing really good things too from James Williams, Nebraska defensive end transfer, on how he coaches and how connected and the relationships that he builds with his players. And really interested to see how that works whenever we get out there to the practice fields come spring.
Yeah, that's an intriguing one, because you kind of went over every base there, but brings the experience as a guy who had a standout college career and then played in the NFL, made a Super Bowl appearance and, played for the Jags and the Broncos. And since he's gotten into coaching, it seems like he did a pretty good job as a recruiter, maybe over-recruited a little bit at Nebraska. And the way that he's able to connect with these guys, you talked about James Williams and the relationship that they have. Those two have grown very close on and off the field. And Williams mentioned, he started his journey out as an unranked junior college prospect that showed up for a summer camp, just hoping for an opportunity, and it kind of transpired from there. So I think it just shows like how Terrence Knighton's able to believe and then build up his players. So that should be exciting. I'm personally going with Tony White, Florida State's new defensive coordinator, just because we've seen this 4-2-5 defense under Adam Fuller for, the last half decade. And now you're going to have a little bit of a new flavor here with this multiple 3-4 defense under Tony White that has been in the top 25 for 4 straight years, had 2 really good campaigns at Nebraska. And I'm just interested to see how Florida State does things pre-snap, because it seemed like pretty vanilla under Adam Fuller for the most part. And with Tony White, you're just going to be able to provide so many different looks, whether it's how the defensive line is lining up, linebackers closer to line of scrimmage, defensive backs cheating down. It should be really exciting to see. And he's not someone who gets stale with the game plans. He's willing to adapt as the game goes on, adapt to his personnel. So all of that, to me, makes it a really exciting hire. And want to see what they do during the spring, start getting a feel for that.
Well, since you guys took both of the names that I was going to go with, I'm just going to say whoever the next basketball coach is.
Yeah, let's see how that question was asked from Panda. Which new coach hire are you most excited about to see in action? Yeah, that could
whichever,
work.
whichever the next basketball coach is.
I mean, it was, yeah. I just blasted everybody today with like, hey, just give us some questions. We need something, man. It's pretty dry right now here in the end of February. So that could work. I mean, I'm surprised that none of us said, Herb Hand. I mean, I'm sure that's on everybody's top 3.
It is. And if I was being serious, that's probably who I would have gone with. But it's also one of those that it can't get worse than it's been. So just anything's an improvement.
Yeah. I want to, I'm just trying to see what would be different with how Alex Atkins coached that group, because he was very hands-on with them. Sometimes one-on-one, he'd let you know if you're screwing up or whatever, what in the drill. But, as we learn, that wasn't working, so you can be hands-on with the guy and do all this kind of stuff. And you try to run these drills this way or maybe do technique. But to me, I think things did not work well because you did not see development. And I think that's something that, we don't know how that's going to work. We're not coaches or anything. Definitely on the offensive line, that is a tricky position group to coach. I think it's one of the toughest in football just because of how instrumental it is for an offense and the biggest part of your team to go down and score points. And you have to have a good offense in order to do that and build chemistry and build communication. And I'm interested to see how Herb Hand coaches that group to develop these guys, because that was something that this team lacked very heavily, as we saw in the last 5 years under Alex Atkins coaching. There's another question on here, and speaking of Tony White, Dustin, it's predicated around this. This is coming from Chips28 on our Discord asking, are practices going to be more physical moving forward? Tony White has mentioned this, that it's what makes a defense great. In the past, that is not something that Mike Norvell has been willing to do. So talking about the practices and having physicality there for the most part, Dustin, you and I have been there, there's not a whole ton of physical contact, and you see that on 11 on 11, you see it in team, there's not a lot of guys getting tackled. And if it does happen, maybe it happens in one-on-one, wide receivers, DBs, and, they go down with each other, yada, yada, yada. And, I think the biggest thing that fans see on Twitter are the continuous videos of them doing the same drill, ball carrier, go around the cone, come back, and just touch each other type of thing. And, not saying that that's not a good drill for football, but it kind of continues to be a repetitive thing. And then also, too, when you go out on Saturdays and you see the loafing, you don't see a lot of effort. You don't see the physicality that a Florida State defense or offense should be bringing on a week-to-week basis. You question of what's going on in the practices and what the hell is happening. What are they doing? What are they playing patty cake? What's going on? But I actually found a quote here from Tony White talking about at least the defensive side of things and how things should work. This was in his introductory press conference. He says, you can talk about being as physical as you want, but if you don't practice that way, prepare that way, you won't be physical. You can talk about playing with so much effort, but if you don't demand it on the field, it's not going to happen. And just going off of that quote and just now understanding, and I think too, Mike Norvell understanding there has to be some changes made in the way that they run these practices. To me, I'm leaning on the defensive side that, yeah, they're going to have some physical practices, and we're going to see more of that. And you got to play it smart and be smart with it. But I think fans, along with people too that cover the team, are expecting to see a little bit more of some physicality going into maybe this spring camp and limiting things in the fall. But I think you'll see a different kind of practice flow going into this next season. I think it's almost mandatory after the product we saw last year.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts from the defensive side of the ball. And then, I mean, it's up to the offense to match that intensity that the defense brings to the table. And, I don't necessarily think that Florida State's coaching, like with the way that they run these practices, it's setting them up for a lack of physicality. But like you said, Logan, there is a knack of them running a lot of the same drills multiple days of the week and not really switching up those drills a lot. I do wonder if we'll see maybe some more variance in Tony White's day-to-day approach. That'll be something that we'll be paying attention to throughout the spring. But, at the same time, colleges are trying to protect their players, especially in the spring when you're not even close to the season. And then there's also limits from the NCAA on how much you're able to have full pad practices and full contact. So, I mean, there's certainly some things that you have to work through, but at the end of the day, Florida State's got to be a lot more physical than they were in 2024. I mean, they got flat out beat up front on offense on the offensive line, and how poorly that defensive line performed was a big reason that those defensive issues continued to persist throughout last season. So a big thing that starts with change that is punching the other team in the mouth, and we'll see if Florida State's able to develop that mentality. But very encouraging that Tony White's already thinking about that approach when he just got hired by Florida State. So it says a lot about his mentality, what he wants to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. I think he too really saw the film. He saw how Florida State played last year. It's like, that ain't going to work. And, you watch Nebraska's defense too, and you see a lot of high motor plays. That's where I think a lot of us are excited to see James Williams come in, someone that can bring that motor and bring that energy. But it's kind of got to be all across the board. If you have your offensive line just playing lackadaisical and just doesn't want to go out there and, like you said, Dustin, punch someone in the mouth first, then you kind of just set the tone of how you want to play for that entire game. And we saw that last year. And with that also comes mistakes, and you screw yourself, and then you also have penalties, and it's just kind of just a really bad wheel that just keeps on going until it explodes. And that's what happened last year. And that's why I'm interested to see how these practices go. I'm more intrigued now to go visit these because of the new coordinators coming in, and now it's mandatory for Mike Norvell to make changes. And I think having more physical practices is probably good for Florida State, but it needs to be in a smart way too as well. No matter what, it's football. Guys are going to get hurt, but just don't put yourself in situations where, I'm not saying for the football player, but for the coaches and how they're setting up these practices, make sure things are ran smart. And, I'm not a coach, they're going to do that, but some physicality, nature into it, and not just tapping guys might get you a little bit better prepared for Saturdays. Definitely when you're going into tackling, that was an issue last year as well. That's kind of what they put themselves into. And I mean, I'm just interested to see how Tony White, if he's going to be doing that on the defensive side of the ball, I'd imagine too with Gus Malzahn, the way that he likes to run the ball, show the physicality up front. Hey, this is what we're doing. Get good luck. That should create some pretty fun practices. Definitely when you've got some youngsters like Kevin Wynn and Usman Kromach potential going up the hole. That's where I'm like, okay, I want to get up there for some practices because there is going to be physicality. There needs to be physicality. And we have to see a change there, I think, in practices to me, in order for this team to play better as a whole. Definitely when you're starting off the season against Alabama. And then to finish it off here before you go.
Man, just don't even let VZ get a word in. Wow.
I didn't want one. We're good.
You don't want to talk about, there is no physicality in basketball, D-Lou, so he doesn't really understand it here on our football realm of things. He just doesn't understand it. Here we go. This is a good question here. Which offense versus defensive battle are you looking forward to the most in the spring? So a lot of one-on-one situations here. These are always my favorites. BZ, do you want to go first for us? Do you have one?
Please, because I know my answer will be stolen if I don't get it out now.
You just gotta go. You just gotta jump in. You just be like, I got one right now. You just jump in.
Why'd you sound like that? I don't sound like that. I'm going basic. I'm going O-line versus D-line. Obviously, new coaches on each side. It was hyped up last year because you see the experience in the offensive line and the defensive line. You're hearing about it all camp, and it ended up just being a lot of mid on mid. So they're making each other look better than they actually were. Hopefully that's a little improved this year. An entirely new offensive line, pretty much. At worst, it'll be 4 new starters. Defensive line, new system, new coordinators. And Florida State can't win without being much better in the trenches. Otherwise, they might be looking at a 2-win season again.
Whoa. Hey, I went specific in these. I went name to name. I'm going name versus name in these position groups. I don't know if y'all just picked.
Good for you.
I did not prepare for that.
It's which offense versus defense battle are you looking forward to the most?
That wasn't the question.
You can think of these real quickly, though. Here's number 1, though. Let me tell you right now. Luke Pettibon versus Daryl Jackson. Sign me up. Let's go. Wake Forest center transfer is going to be the glue to that offensive line. Daryl Jackson, want to see some improvement there, like I was talking about earlier, some development, some growth as a player under Terrence Knighton. Luke Pettibon, the veteran coming in, has excelled at the ACC level. I think that will be a pretty fun battle to watch in the spring. Talk about, I just love trenches. I mean, majority of these are all in the trenches for me, but I think Luke Pettibon versus Daryl Jackson is going to be, get your popcorn out for that. If we're going to get a little physical too, sign me up.
I can't say I have anything different here, boys. I mean, I've got offensive line versus defensive line, and it kind of just goes with what we just talked about on that last question about establishing physicality and getting to that point where you're the one setting the tone at the line of scrimmage rather than your opponent. And I think we're going to see that change begin to dictate itself during spring practice. Obviously, Herb Hand, he brings that tough nose mentality to the offensive line, and then Terrence Knight, he's bringing plenty of swagger to the defense. So I'm really interested to see how those personalities kind of pay off on the rest of their units, and maybe how they perform differently compared to the past. And at the same time, just seeing those two, Herb Hand's offensive line and Terrence Knight's defensive line, going up against one another in practice each day, it's going to be something that I'll be paying a lot of attention to during spring practice.
Mm-hmm. I had a list here. I don't know. I just love these kind of things here. Let me get James Williams versus Micah Pettis. I'm up for that. I think, to me, to watch out for is Micah Pettis too big to be able to deal with more of a twitchier guy than her guy and James Williams. Interested to see how that works and shakes out. If Micah Pettis can block a guy like that, that's very quick and agile. That'd be really impressive from his part. But interested to see, James Williams wants to be a 3-down defensive end, a guy that can be out there on the field for much longer than what he was previously at Nebraska. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on those two going at it with each other. I also put in here Deuce Robinson versus Quindarius Jones. I love me some Q, and I like the way that he plays with his physicality. I think this is going to be good for both parties involved when those guys are going at it. Definitely in those one-on-one situations, fade routes. Quindarius Jones plays with a high motor. He likes to chirp. He's exactly kind of like what I like to have in a defensive back from Florida State. And he's going to have to take that next step, and going against Deuce Robinson throughout the spring will be really fun to watch on my end. And then I also put in here Cam Davis. This is just like, I was just getting a little wild with that. I went Cam Davis. We're going to get physical. Cam Davis versus Elijah Herring, the Memphis transfer linebacker. To me, I want to see more of these drills. We used to do it in high school, but hand it off. Got a guy blocking there. Let's see who's going to get through the hole. And I like Elijah Herring. I think he's going to play a lot this upcoming season for Florida State, potentially start too as well, just off all the production that he had at his previous stop. And then Cam Davis, he's just a bowling ball kind of guy. And also too, interested to see what kind of growth he makes as well going into his second season.
I don't think Oklahoma drills are legal anymore, buddy.
I don't think so either.
How can we make some of those legal? Is it a state thing? Do we need to go to a different state line?
I think you just do it in secret, like
yeah.
Hide everybody.
Yeah, then I wouldn't be able to see it though. That's what sucks. But yeah. Let's finish it off with some basketball, gentlemen. Florida State, Miami. What I got on there for you, BZ. I'm got the 4th and 14. I know it's football,
different sport. Yeah.
It's okay. Physical over here. Patty cake on the court. But Matthew Cleveland's back, baby. D-Lou, you're going to be there for Matthew Cleveland. I feel like he's been in college now for 15 years. Like, I feel like he's transferred like 4 years ago. Do they just put Matthew Cleveland back into whatever? I don't know. I don't know a basketball term.
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with this.
I don't know. Either. I don't know. I'm trying to build excitement for this 9 o'clock game.
Yeah, it stinks that it's a 9 o'clock tip for 2 Florida teams. I don't know why the ACC decided on that, but I will be filing a formal protest on it.
No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's Matthew Cleveland's last game, potentially against Florida State, assuming there isn't a matchup in the ACC tournament, which if the ACC tournament started today, Miami wouldn't even be in it because they're that bad. Little did we know that when Matthew Cleveland went to Miami and chose the number 0, that's how many wins he'd have against Florida State at this point in his career. And he could be ending in his career like that. To his credit, he'd been playing really good basketball for the last month or so, averaging over 26 points per game before their last game at Pitt when he kind of had a stinker, just 8 points, 4 of 16 shooting. But Florida State dominated this matchup in Coral Gables a little over a month ago. And while Miami's playing a little bit better basketball right now, I just don't think it's a great matchup for the Hurricanes. That's really what it comes down to. Florida State should be able to win. That showing against Clemson on Saturday was a little, let's call it embarrassing, I think. But they should still be able to beat Miami at home, give Coach Hamilton a win against his former team because he spent almost a decade in Coral Gables, and I think it'd be the right way to send out Coach Hamilton, even though he's still got a little over a month remaining, or little less than a month actually.
Well, lucky for Coach Ham, I'm 1-0 in the Tuck this season. I was there when they upset Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago, so I got a good feeling about tonight. I'm going to get me a tall boy, and I'm going to boo the shit out of Matthew Cleveland.
Nice. You should go jump over to the student section. Sold out tonight. It's going to be.
I might rush the court.
Is it sold out? I didn't see that.
You said you will, or they might?
Me, like individually.
You're eating those friggin' stairs so quickly, it's not even funny. Definitely after how many? You're going to have 1 tall boy or 2?
Slide down well, we'll see. 2.
Probably 2.
Slide down the railing.
Slide down and crack everything. You're already injured right now as it is, so
making my way back
to the pickleball court. The comeback's gonna be crazy at Tom Brown. Everybody stay tuned. Yeah, 9 o'clock. I will be tuning in from my radio. I will be tuning in from the radio. Don't know if I'll be tuning
even
in
on the radio.
I like, hey, Jeff Collane does a great job there. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be tuning in, but hopefully Florida State can beat Matthew Cleveland. That's all I care about, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much all it comes down to. Let me get my trolls off. Let me get my tweets off.
Yep, exactly.
That's all I need.
Can you go and name our next head coach for FSU basketball while you're at it, VZ, so we can get the views up?
Luke Laux was at the game on Saturday against Clemson. It's the NBA All-Star break, so a lot of the guys in the NBA had about a week off, 8 days off, something like that, and he chose to spend his in Michael Alford's box in the Tucker Center. I believe he was also at either the softball game or baseball game the night before. So he was on campus for a couple days and attended that whooping in the Tucker Center on Saturday. I've said it a few times. I'd be surprised if it's someone else at this point. I feel like it's his to turn down.
Oh, okay. Luke Laux, top odds right now. Former FSU player. Anything else, gentlemen? I mean, we're heading to the NFL Combine. That's coming up. We're going to see a handful of FSU players up there. Luka trade still hurting you, VZ? Like a couple tears a night before bed type of deal?
Not to that point. But the like 2 straight weeks of only getting about 2 hours of sleep finally hit me about 2 days ago. I've been just sleeping just the last few days, pretty much nonstop.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you could even go out on Valentine's Day after Dallas broke your heart.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. That's why he has someone else to repair it, D-Lou. He's got someone he needed someone badly. and someone came through and fixed that heart for him.
He got his rebound.
Yeah, he sure did. We'll get more comments from VZ later on down the road.
Probably not.
On his Valentine's night. Now we'll get a rundown.
Probably not.
But I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. I think we're getting close to preparing for previewing the offensive and defensive side. Special teams is going to be a big one for us. We're nearing it. We're getting close. We're hopefully going to get some interviews too here soon for you guys, to keep some entertainment. And like we said, we don't know what could be going on this spring, if the thing's going to be more limited in practices to media. I'm interested to see if there's any kind of shakeup there for Mike Norvell and the rest of the staff and the new staff coming in, but we'll just see how it goes. But nonetheless, we'll be here live next week for you guys, all the way up there from Indy, and the gentleman will be on here with me, and we'll see what we can talk about. But as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Deeply appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Like I said, not a whole ton of going on right now, but to have you on here with us is huge, and promise we're going to try to keep this thing going all the way into what should be a very interesting season for Florida State in 2025. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's week, and we'll talk to you guys next week, either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere around there, as long as I don't freeze to death. Have a great week. Peace. Bye. Actually starting to gain more viewers at the end. We should have just talked more about Beezy's. Did I not end the stream?
I don't think so.